Hello students, today we'll be discussing about the anatomy of temporal fossa and also we'll be starting with the infratemporal fossa. So the temporal fossa, it is situated on either side of the head, above and in front of the auricle. The competencies according to the new CBME curriculum for the following topics are as under. Hence the learning objective of this topic are the following. So at the end of this session, students should be able to describe and demonstrate the extent, the boundaries, the contents of temporal and also of infratemporal fossa. The student should be able to describe and demonstrate the attachment of muscles of mastication with their direction of fibers, the nerve supply and actions of the muscles of respective regions, and also the applied aspect. So the temporal fossa, it is limited above by the superior temporal line represented by the blue line here. In front, the temporal fossa is limited by the frontal process of zygomatic and also the zygomatic process of frontal bone. Posteriorly, the fossa is limited by the inferior temporal line represented by red and also the supramastoid crest of the temporal bone. Below or inferiorly, the fossa is communicating with the infratemporal fossa beneath the zygomatic arch. So if we revise here, anteriorly, the zygomatic and the frontal bones are forming the anterior boundary. Posteriorly, the fossa is limited by the inferior temporal line and the supramastoid crest of temporal. Superiorly, the superior temporal line. Also, the inferiorly, the fossa is communicating with the infratemporal fossa beneath the zygomatic arch. So, the floor of temporal fossa is formed by the parts of frontal, parietal, temporal and the great wing of sphenoid. This H-shaped suture is the pterion. The floor of fossa is giving attachment to the temporalis muscle, which is again covered by a fascia that is known as temporal fascia. In this picture, we can see that this temporal fossa is communicating with the infratemporal fossa beneath the zygomatic arch. Talking about the contents of temporal fascia, the temporalis muscle is covered by a sheath of fascia that is known as temporal fascia. The temporalis muscle is supplied by the deep temporal nerves and superficial temporal vessels. And we'll be also talking about the auriculotemporal nerve. The temporal fascia is a strong sheet of fascia which covers the temporalis muscle above the zygomatic arch. So the temporal fascia is a thick aponeurotic sheet roofing over the temporal fossa. It is single layered in upper part and it is attached to the superior nuchal line. Inferiorly, it splits into two layers, attaching itself to the outer and inner lip of the zygomatic arch. So the gap between the two layers of the temporal fascia contains fat, branches of superficial temporal vessels, and the zygomaticotemporal nerve. Also, the superficial surface receives an extension of glia and it provides origin to the auricularis anterior and the superior muscles. Also related to the superficial surface are the superficial temporal vessels, the auriculotemporal nerve, and the temporal branch of the facial nerve. Deep surface of the temporal fascia, it gives origin to the temporalis muscle. Talking about the temporalis muscle, it is a fan-shaped muscle which is arising from the floor of temporal fossa below the inferior temporal line. It does not involve the zygomatic bone. The temporalis is arising in an area of the temporal fossa which is bounded above by the inferior temporal line and below by the infratemporal crest. It also arises from the overlying temporal fascia. Hence, the temporalis has origin from the temporal fossa and from the temporalis fascia. The bony and the facial origins, they gave the muscle a bipinnate appearance. The fibers of temporalis, they converge below to form a tendon which passes deep to the zygomatic arch, and it is getting inserted onto the coronoid process of mandible, and it also gets insertion onto the anterior border of ramus of mandible. So in the coronoid process, the attachment of temporalis are in its medial aspect, its apex, anterior as well as posterior border, and onto the ramus it is getting inserted along the anterior aspect of ramus of mandible. So if we see the attachment of temporalis muscle, it is arising from the temporal fossa excluding the zygomatic bone, and from the overlying temporal fascia. The fibers are converging together to gaining attachment to the coronoid process along its margin and the medial surface, and also the origin of temporalis is extending till the anterior border of mandibular ramus up to the third molar tooth. The nerve supply of temporalis is through the deep temporal nerves, which are derived from the anterior division of mandibular nerve. The deep temporal nerves are 2 in number, and they pass between the bony fossa and supply the muscle from its deeper aspect. Talking about the blood supply, the temporalis is supplied by the deep temporal vessels, which are derived from the second part of maxillary artery. Also, it is supplemented by the middle temporal branches of superficial temporal artery. If we talk about the action of temporalis, it helps to elevate the mandible. The anterior fibers are causing the elevation, while the posterior fibers, they are helping in retraction of mandible after its protrusion. The muscle of both sides, they are involved in side-to-side movement of the lower jaw. Talking about the auriculotemporal nerve, it is a branch of posterior division of mandibular nerve. It appears by two roots enclosing a middle meningeal artery. It emerges from the parotid gland behind the temporomandibular joint, and it crosses the posterior root of zygoma, and it appears in front of auricle. So it emerges from the parotid gland behind the temporomandibular joint, and it emerges in front of the auricle. Thereby it supplies the skin of the auricle, external acoustic meatus, and the scalp of temporal region. The superficial temporal artery is one of the terminal branches of the external carotid artery. It ascends over the zygomatic arch, and it can be palpated just in front of auricle. So it ascends upwards and it divides into a frontal branch and a parietal branch. Also, it is accompanied by the auriculotemporal nerve, we have already seen, and thus it supplies the scalp also. Now we will be starting with the discussion about the infratemporal region. We'll be dealing with the introduction, boundaries, and contents of the infratemporal region. The contents would be under the muscle, the vessels, and the nerves. Infratemporal region, as the name suggests, it is situated beneath the base of the skull, lying immediately beneath the middle cranial fossa, between the pharynx and the ramus of the mandible, and it is consisting of the infratemporal fossa and its content. The mandible and the part of zygomatic bone have been removed. So if we see here, this is the infratemporal region. We have seen that the temporal fossa is communicating inferiorly with the infratemporal region. So talking about the walls of infratemporal region, anterior wall is formed by the back of the maxilla or the posterior aspect of maxilla. Medial wall is formed by the lateral pterygoid plate. Lateral wall is formed by the ramus of the mandible, and the roof of the infratemporal region is formed by the infratemporal surface of greater wing of sphenoid. So if we see the boundaries of infratemporal region, this is the region we are talking about. In front, it is bounded by the posterior surface of body of maxilla. Posteriorly is the styloid process of temporal bone. Medially is the lateral pterygoid plate. Also, the pyramidal process of palatine bone contribute to the medial boundary of the infratemporal region. Laterally is the ramus of the mandible along with the coronoid process. Superiorly or above is the infratemporal surface of greater wing of sphenoid. Below, the fossa is open and it is continuous with the tissue spaces along with the pharynx and esophagus. The positioning of the infratemporal fossa is such that it is communication with the surrounding areas. In front, it is communicating with the orbit through the inferior orbital fissure. Medially, it is communicating with the pterygopalatine fossa through the pterygomaxillary fissure. Above and laterally, it is communicating with the temporal fossa through a gap between the zygomatic arch and the side of the skull. Above and medially, it is communicating with the middle cranial fossa through the foramen ovale and foramen spinosum. If we assume it to be a cuboid, the lateral wall is cut open. So we are able to appreciate the anterior wall, the posterior wall, the medial wall, and the roof. Anterior wall is formed by the posterior surface of maxilla. So anteriorly, it is communicating with the orbit through inferior orbital fissure. Medial wall was formed by the lateral pterygoid plate, lateral aspect. So it is communicating with the pterygopalatine fossa passing through this pterygomaxillary fissure. Above and laterally, it was communicating with the temporal fossa through a gap between the zygomatic arch and side of skull. Above and medially, it was communicating with the middle cranial fossa through the foramen ovale and foramen spinosum. So it is communicating with the orbit through the inferior orbital fissure, through the pterygomaxillary fissure. The infratemporal fossa is communicating medially with the pterygomaxillary fissure. Here we can appreciate this is the maxilla posterior surface and this is the pterygoid process. This is the lateral pterygoid place. This is the space through which the infratemporal fossa is communicating with the pterygopalatine fossa. This is the pterygomaxillary fissure. Above, it is communicating with the temporal fossa and with the middle cranial fossa through foramen ovale and spinosum. Above, laterally, it is communicating with the temporal fossa through a gap deep to the zygomatic arch. Now talking about the contents of infratemporal region, these are the muscles, the nerves, the vessels, and also a ligament, that is a sphenomandibular ligament. The muscles of this region are the lateral and the medial pterygoid, the lower part of temporalis. Also, we'll be discussing about the masseter muscle. Nerves in this region are the mandibular nerve and its branches. Also, we'll be discussing about the chorda tympani, the otic ganglion with its connection. The vessel in this region is mainly the maxillary artery and its branches. Also, a word about the pterygoid venous plexus will be dealt in the subsequent slides. The muscles of mastications are the muscles that help to move the mandible during mastication and speech. These are the masseter muscle, the temporalis muscle, the lateral pterygoid, the medial pterygoid. They develop from the mesoderm of first brachial arch and they are supplied by the mandibular nerve, which is the nerve of first arch. Talking about the masseter muscle, this muscle has three layers, the superficial layer, middle layer and the deep layer. The superficial layer is arising from the zygomatic process of maxilla and from the anterior two-thirds of lower border of the zygomatic arch. The fibers are getting inserted into the lower part of lateral surface of ramus of mandible. This is the point of insertion of the superficial layer of masseter muscle into the lower part of lateral surface of ramus. Middle layer is arising from the medial surface of anterior two-thirds and the lower border of posterior one-third of zygomatic arch, and the middle layer fibers are getting inserted into the middle part of lateral surface of ramus of mandible. The deep layer is arising from the medial or the deep surface of zygomatic arch and the fibers are getting inserted into the upper part of ramus of mandible and into the coronoid process. This picture is showing us the direction of fibers of superficial, middle and the deep layer. Superficial layer fibers are directed downwards and backwards, whereas the middle and the deeper layer, the fibers are going vertically downwards. So the origin of masseter muscle is from the zygomatic process and the zygomatic arch. The superficial fibers, they are arising from the anterior two-thirds of the lower border of zygomatic arch and the adjoining zygomatic process. The middle layer is arising from the posterior one-third of lower border of zygomatic arch, and the deep layer is arising from the deep surface of zygomatic arch. And the muscle is getting inserted onto the lateral surface of ramus of mandible and also along the angle of mandible. The direction of fibers, the superficial layer is going downwards and backwards, whereas the middle and deeper layer are running vertically. These are the specific point of insertion of, this is the point of insertion of superficial part, this is the point of insertion of middle layer, and this is the deeper layer of masseter. Nerve supply of masseter is through masseteric nerve, which is arising from the anterior division of mandibular nerve, and the transverse facial artery is supplying the masseter muscle. Talking about the action of masseter, it elevates the lower jaw, it elevates the mandible, the deeper fiber, and the superficial fibers are causing the protrusion of the lower jaw. The unilateral contraction of masseter, the mandible protrudes on that side and it pivots around the opposite side so that the chin is facing towards the opposite side. Alternate contraction of the two sides results in swinging of chin from one side to another, resulting in grinding movement of teeth. Talking about another muscle, that is the lateral pterygoid. This lateral pterygoid has two heads of origin, the upper head and the lower head. The upper head, if we see, is arising from the infratemporal surface and the crest of greater wing of sphenoid, whereas the lower head is arising from the lateral surface of lateral pterygoid plate. Lower head is arising from, this is the pterygoid plate, lateral surface of lateral pterygoid plate is giving origin to the lower head of lateral pterygoid, and the upper head is arising from the infratemporal surface and the crest of greater wing of sphenoid. Now as you can see, both the head are uniting and converging backwards to gain insertion into the pterygoid fovea. So talking about insertion, both the head proceed backwards and laterally and they converge into a tendon which is getting inserted into the pterygoid fovea of the neck of mandible, into the articular disc of temporomandibular joint and the capsule of the temporomandibular joint anterior aspect. So the two heads converge and they proceed to get inserted into the pterygoid fovea, articular disc and capsule anterior aspect of the capsule of temporomandibular joint. This is the lateral pterygoid plate. Lateral pterygoid plate, lateral surface is giving origin to the lower head of lateral pterygoid, whereas the upper head is arising from the infratemporal surface and the crest of greater wing of sphenoid. Both the heads are getting united, they are converging and gaining attachment to the pterygoid fovea, and the articular disc, anterior aspect and capsule of temporomandibular joint is the insertion of lateral pterygoid muscle. The lateral pterygoid muscle is supplied by the anterior division of mandibular nerve, which is also known as nerve to lateral pterygoid. Since it is gaining insertion onto the pterygoid fovea and on the articular disc and the anterior aspect of the capsule of temporomandibular joint, the lateral pterygoid, when it contracts, it pulls the articular disc and along with it the head of mandible anteriorly onto the articular eminence, thereby causing the depression of mandible or depressing the lower jaw. This is the only muscle which is causing the depression of the mandible. The combined action of lateral and medial pterygoid muscle of both sides acting together causes the protrusion of mandible. It moves the mandible forwards. Combined action of lateral and medial pterygoid muscle of both sides. For side-to-side movements of the lower jaw, medial and lateral pterygoid muscle of one side, they act alternately with the opposite side muscles, thereby causing side-to-side movement. Since the lateral pterygoid muscle is the key muscle of this region, let us discuss the superficial relations of lateral pterygoid after retracting the ramus of mandible with the temporalis muscle. So the masseter, the ramus of mandible and the temporalis, they come in the superficial relation of lateral pterygoid along with the superficial head of medial pterygoid muscle. Also, the maxillary artery, it can be seen in the superficial relation of the lateral pterygoid. It runs upwards. The second part of the maxillary artery, it can sometimes cross superficial to, or it may pass deep to the lower head of lateral pterygoid muscle, and then it dips between the two heads of lateral pterygoid muscle, and then it enters the pterygopalatine fossa through the pterygomaxillary fissure. So the superficial relations of lateral pterygoid muscle are the masseter muscle, the temporalis along with the ramus of mandible, and the superficial head of medial pterygoid muscle. The maxillary artery, it may pass superficial or it may pass deep to the lower head of lateral pterygoid. Also can be appreciated is the buccal nerve and the pterygoid plexus of vein. The pterygoid plexus of vein is seen as the peripheral heart. It aids in the venous return by pumping action of lateral pterygoid. And the tributaries are those veins which accompany the branches of maxillary artery. Now talking about the deep relation of lateral pterygoid, the structures which are coming in deep relations are the mandibular nerve and its branches. Those are the nerve to lateral pterygoid. Also auriculotemporal nerve, we can see the auriculotemporal nerve is arising by two roots as it is encircling the middle meningeal artery here. Also we can appreciate the inferior alveolar nerve and the lingual nerve. The lingual nerve is joined by the chorda tympani nerve at an acute angle. Also we can appreciate in the deeper relation of lateral pterygoid are the sphenomandibular ligament and the deep head of medial pterygoid muscle. To summarize the relation of lateral pterygoid, since the lateral pterygoid is consisting of upper and lower head, both the heads are uniting to gain attachment to the pterygoid fovea. There are certain structures which are emerging at the upper border. The structures which are emerging at the upper border are the deep temporal nerves and the mesenteric nerve, deep temporal arteries and the mesenteric arteries. The structures which are emerging at the lower border are the lingual nerve, the inferior alveolar nerve and vessels. Also seen are the middle meningeal and the accessory meningeal arteries which are passing upwards deep to the lateral pterygoid. The structures which pass through gap between the two heads of lateral pterygoid are the maxillary artery and the buccal branch of mandibular nerve. The maxillary artery, the first part, it runs forwards deep to the neck of mandible and it runs along the lower border of lateral pterygoid muscle. The second part, it may run upwards, sometimes superficial or sometimes deep to the lower head of lateral pterygoid muscle. And the third part of maxillary artery, it dips between the two heads of lateral pterygoid muscle to leave the infratemporal fossa and enters the pterygopalatine fossa through the pterygomaxillary fissure. Also, the pterygoid venous plexus is situated around the lateral pterygoid muscle. The tributaries of pterygoid plexus of veins is similar to the branches of maxillary artery. The pterygoid venous plexus, it acts as a peripheral heart acts by venous return by pumping action of lateral pterygoid. So these are the structures which are in relation to the lateral pterygoid muscle. Now the next muscle is the medial pterygoid. The medial pterygoid has two heads, the superficial head and a deep head. The superficial head, it arises from the maxillary tuberosity and from the pyramidal process of palatine bone. Here we can see the superficial head is arising from the maxillary tuberosity and from the pyramidal process of the palatine bone. The deep head of medial pterygoid, it arises from the medial surface of the lateral pterygoid muscle. The pterygoid process is made up of a lateral pterygoid plate and a medial pterygoid plate. The lateral pterygoid plate is the muscular plate which is giving origin to the pterygoid muscles. The deep head of medial pterygoid is arising from the medial surface of the lateral pterygoid plate. We can see here again the superficial head and the deep head. The superficial head is arising from the maxillary tuberosity. The deep head is arising from the medial surface of the lateral pterygoid plate. This is the posterior view we are watching. Talking about the insertion of medial pterygoid, both the superficial and deep head, they pass downwards, backwards and laterally, and they are getting inserted onto the medial surface of the ramus and the angle of mandible, below and behind the mylohyoid groove and mandibular foramen. So this is the inner aspect of the jaw, and this is the coronal section we are watching. So both the heads of the medial pterygoid, they are passing backwards and laterally, getting inserted onto the medial surface of ramus of mandible and the angle of mandible, below and behind the mandibular foramen and the mylohyoid groove. The nerve supply to the medial pterygoid muscle is through the trunk of mandibular nerve, which gives nerve to medial pterygoid. So the medial pterygoid is made up of superficial head and a deep head. Superficial head is arising from the maxillary tuberosity and the adjoining pyramidal process of palatine bone. The deep head is arising from the medial surface of lateral pterygoid plate. Both the heads are passing downwards and backwards and getting inserted onto the medial surface of ramus of mandible and the angle of mandible, below and behind the mandibular foramen and mylohyoid groove. Talking about the action of medial pterygoid, the medial pterygoid of both the sides, it elevates the mandible, helping in closure of mouth. The lateral pterygoid as well as medial pterygoid, if they contract together and bilaterally, they cause protrusion of mandible. The lateral and medial pterygoid of same side, that is the unilateral contraction, the mandible protrudes on that side and it pivots around opposite side so that chin is flew towards the opposite side, and lateral and medial pterygoid of both the side alternately they contract to produce side to side movements of the lower jaw as in chewing. Talking about the superficial relations of medial pterygoid, the upper part of this muscle is separated from the lateral pterygoid by the lateral pterygoid plate, the lingual nerve and the inferior alveolar nerves and vessels. Lower down, it is separated from the ramus of mandible by the lingual nerve, inferior alveolar nerve, maxillary artery and the sphenomandibular ligament. So, the structures which are superficial to medial pterygoid are the lateral pterygoid plate, the lingual nerve, inferior alveolar nerves and vessels, also maxillary artery and the sphenomandibular ligament. The structures which are in deep relations to the medial pterygoid which has been removed are the levator villi palatini, the tensor villi palatini, the pharyngobasilar fascia, the superior constrictor muscle of the pharynx, the styloglossus muscle and the stylopharyngeus muscle. These are in deeper relation to the medial pterygoid muscle. Let us now discuss the mandibular nerve, which is the main nerve that supplies the muscle of infratemporal region. The mandibular nerve is the largest division of the trigeminal nerve, having both motor and a sensory root. The mandibular nerve, it begins in the middle cranial fossa and it passes through the foramen ovale to enter the infratemporal fossa. So it has a thick sensory root and a thin motor root. Hence, the mandibular nerve is a mixed nerve. Talking about the sensory and the motor root of the mandibular nerve, the sensory root is thick and it is derived from the trigeminal ganglion and it passes out of the skull through foramen ovale to enter the infratemporal fossa. The thin motor root of the trigeminal nerve, it arises directly from the pons and it passes below the ganglion. It also leaves the skull through the foramen ovale and here it joins the sensory root to form the trunk of mandibular nerve. Now this trunk of mandibular nerve further divides into a smaller anterior division and a larger posterior division. So the mandibular nerve, it leaves the middle cranial fossa by passing through the foramen ovale and it enters the infratemporal fossa. Now the trunk of the mandibular nerve, it gives a branch that is the meningeal branch, also known as nervus spinosus, this bluish color. And also the trunk gives another branch which is nerve to medial pterygoid, represented in this purple color. So these are the branches of the mandibular nerve arising directly from the trunk. Now this trunk again divides into an anterior division and a posterior division. Anterior division is mainly giving muscular branches and also a sensory branch, that is the buccal branch. The posterior division is giving the sensory branches. Now we will be discussing about the branches of mandibular nerve in detail. So if we see here, this is the sensory root, this is the motor root, joining together, coming out from the foramen ovale to enter the infratemporal region. This is the trunk of mandibular nerve, which is giving two nerves, that is nerve to medial pterygoid and also nervus spinosus. The nervus spinosus or the meningeal branch, it enters the skull back through foramen spinosum along with the middle meningeal artery. Thereby, it supplies the dura mater of middle cranial fossa. Talking about nerve to medial pterygoid, it supplies the medial pterygoid muscle. Also, it supplies the tensor villi palatini muscle and also to the tensor tympani muscle. Branches arising from the anterior division of mandibular nerve are the three motor branches and one sensory branch. The mesenteric nerve, as the name suggests, it supplies the masseter muscle. It passes laterally over the lateral pterygoid muscle and it passes behind the tendon of temporalis in front of temporomandibular joint. It emerges through the mandibular notch and it supplies the masseter muscle. So it passes laterally over the lateral pterygoid muscle and it passes behind the tendon of temporalis and it passes in front of temporomandibular joint and supplies the masseter muscle. Next branch of anterior division are the deep temporal nerves, which are two in number, and they supply the temporalis from the deeper surface as it passes between the temporal fossa and the muscle. Third motor branch of the anterior division is the nerve to lateral pterygoid muscle. The fourth branch that arises from the anterior division of mandibular nerve is the buccal nerve. It is the only sensory branch of the anterior division. It emerges between the two heads of lateral pterygoid and it supplies the skin and mucous membrane of cheek. A point to note here is that the buccal nerve does not supply the buccinator muscle. The buccinator muscle receives its nerve supply from the facial nerve. So the anterior division of mandibular nerve, this is the anterior division. It gives 3 motor branches and 1 sensory branch. The masseter muscle is supplied by the masseteric nerve. This is the masseteric nerve. It passes laterally over the lateral pterygoid muscle. This is the lateral pterygoid muscle. The masseteric nerve, it passes laterally above the lateral pterygoid, behind the tendon of temporalis and in front of temporomandibular joint. It emerges through the mandibular notch and it thus supplies the masseter muscle. The deep temporal nerves are supplying the temporalis muscle. They are 2 in number and they supply the muscle from the deeper aspect. And this is the nerve to lateral pterygoid. These are the motor branches of anterior division. Fourth is this branch, that is the buccal nerve, which is the sensory supply derived from the anterior division. The posterior division of mandibular nerve, it gives 3 sensory branches: the auriculotemporal nerve, the lingual nerve, and the inferior alveolar nerve. These are the 3 sensory branches which are derived from the posterior division. Auriculotemporal nerve, as we see here, it is arising by 2 roots and it encircles the middle meningeal artery. So this is the posterior division again, giving rise to 3 sensory branches: the auriculotemporal nerve arising by 2 roots encircling the middle meningeal artery, the lingual nerve, and the inferior alveolar nerve. The auriculotemporal nerve is a branch of posterior division of mandibular nerve. It arises by 2 roots which encircle the middle meningeal artery. The middle meningeal artery is derived from the first part of maxillary artery. So the 2 roots of auriculotemporal nerve, they unite to form a single trunk which passes under cover of the lateral pterygoid muscle, hence running between the neck of mandible and the sphenomandibular ligament. This is the medial aspect, this is the lateral aspect. This is the ramus of mandible, this is the neck of mandible. Inner aspect, we can appreciate the sphenomandibular ligament. So the nerve, it passes under cover of lateral pterygoid muscle, passing between the neck of mandible and the sphenomandibular ligament. Here the nerve lies above the first part of maxillary artery. The nerve takes a lateral turn behind the temporomandibular joint and it ascends upwards. Hence, it ascends behind the superficial temporal vessels and it enters the temple area where it divides into superficial temporal branches. So we have seen that the oligotemporal nerve is arising by 2 roots which unite to form a single trunk. It passes under the cover of lateral pterygoid muscle and it runs between the neck of mandible and the sphenomandibular ligament. Now it turns laterally upwards, turning behind the temporomandibular joint, and it ascends behind the superficial temporal vessels. This is a enlarged view of the tragus area where we are seeing the superficial temporal vessels along with the auriculotemporal nerve. Here the nerve divides into the superficial temporal branches. Thus, the auriculotemporal nerve, it supplies the skin of auricle, the external acoustic meatus, and the temporomandibular joint along with the scalp. The articular branches are supplying the skin of tragus, the adjoining upper part of auricle, the roof, the anterior wall of external acoustic meatus, as well as the cuticular layer of tympanic membrane are supplied by the auriculotemporal nerve. The articular branches are given to the temporomandibular joint. The auriculotemporal nerve also conveys the postganglionic parasympathetic secretomotor fibers from the otic ganglion to the parotid salivary gland. The preganglionic fibers are being derived from the glossopharyngeal nerve via the tympanic branch, tympanic plexus, and the lesser petrosal nerve. Talking about the lingual nerve, the lingual nerve is arising from the posterior division of mandibular nerve. It lies in front of inferior alveolar nerve between the lateral pterygoid muscle and the tensor villi palatini. The lingual nerve is joined by chorda tympani nerve from behind at an acute angle. If we see here, this is the chorda tympani nerve and it is joining this lingual nerve at an acute angle from behind. The nerve then passes downwards. It emerges from the lower border of lateral pterygoid muscle, passing downwards and forwards, running between the ramus of mandible and the medial pterygoid muscle. So, here it comes in direct contact with the mandible, medial to the third molar tooth, and it runs beneath the origin of superior constrictor muscle and the mylohyoid muscle. So, the lingual nerve is coming in direct contact with the mandible, lying medial to the third molar tooth, and it runs beneath the origin of superior constrictor and the mylohyoid muscle. The nerve here is covered only by the mucous membrane of the gum, and it becomes palpable against the mandible about 1 centimeter below and behind the third molar tooth. Talking about branches of the lingual nerve, it supplies the mucous membrane of anterior two-thirds of tongue and the floor of mouth along with the mandibular gum. Communicating branches, if we talk about communicating branches, it communicates with the chorda tympani nerve and with the submandibular ganglion on the hyoglossus muscle by two routes. Through these communications, the lingual nerve, it conveys secretomotor fibers to the submandibular as well as sublingual glands. That is, it gives off the preganglionic parasympathetic secretomotor fibers to the submandibular ganglion. The ganglion acts as a postganglionic cell station. Also, taste sensation from anterior two-thirds of the tongue are carried by the lingual nerve, which is a special sense. The posterior division of mandibular nerve, it gives off sensory branches. Those are the auriculotemporal nerve, the lingual nerve, and the inferior alveolar nerve. The inferior alveolar nerve, it conveys both the sensory as well as motor fibers, as it gives a branch to mylohyoid muscle, naming the nerve to mylohyoid. The inferior alveolar nerve, it emerges from the lower border of lateral pterygoid muscle, passing downwards and forwards between the ramus of mandible and the sphenomandibular ligament. If we see here, it passes downwards, coming in contact between the ramus and the sphenomandibular ligament, and it enters the mandibular foramen. Before it enters the mandibular foramen, it pierces the sphenomandibular ligament and gives a branch which is known as nerve to mylohyoid. It enters the mandibular foramen accompanied by the inferior alveolar vessels. Within the mandible, it runs in the mandibular canal and it divides into incisive nerves and the mental nerves. Talking about the branches of inferior alveolar nerve, the distributing branches from the mandibular canal, it supplies the molar as well as premolar teeth and the gums after forming the inferior dental plexus. So it supplies the molar tooth, premolar tooth and the gums, and it forms the inferior dental plexus. Incisive nerve, it supplies the canine and the incisor teeth. The mental nerve, it emerges through the mental foramina to supply the skin of the chin and the lower lip. Mylohyoid nerve is arising from the inferior alveolar nerve before it enters the mandibular foramen. The inferior alveolar nerve, it gives off mylohyoid nerve and it pierces the sphenomandibular ligament. The nerve to mylohyoid supply the mylohyoid muscle, and also it supplies the anterior belly of digastric. If we talk about communicating branches, which frequently runs from inferior alveolar nerve to the lingual nerve, the branches of the posterior division of mandibular nerve are sensory except the nerve to mylohyoid muscle. If we discuss about the applied aspect, injury to the lingual nerve passes forwards into the submandibular region from the infratemporal fossa by running beneath the origin of superior constrictor muscle, which is attached along the posterior border of mylohyoid line on the mandible. Here it is in close relation to the last molar tooth, and it is liable to damage in case of clumsy extraction of impacted third molar. So if we summarize the mandibular nerve, it is having a thick sensory and a thin motor root forming the trunk, which is coming out from the foramen ovale. The branches from the trunk are the meningeal branch, which is known as nervus spinosus, and the nerve to medial pterygoid. Nerve to medial pterygoid supplies the medial pterygoid muscle, tensor palatii, and the tensor tympani. Also, the trunk finally divides into anterior division and a posterior division. Anterior division gives muscular branches. Those are the mesenteric nerve, temporal nerves, deep temporal nerves, and the nerve to lateral pterygoid. The sensory supply of the anterior division is the buccal nerve. Talking about the posterior division, the auriculotemporal nerve, the lingual nerve, and the inferior alveolar nerve. These are the sensory branches. In addition, the inferior alveolar nerve gives nerve to mylohyoid. The mylohyoid nerve supplies the mylohyoid muscle as well as the anterior belly of digastric. So this was all about the mandibular nerve. Now before we proceed with otic ganglion, let us discuss about the parasympathetic ganglions. The four ganglion, they are generally associated with the branches of trigeminal nerve, and they belong to parasympathetic division of autonomic nervous system. They receive preganglionic fibers either from the oculomotor, that is the third nerve, or the seventh nerve, or the ninth nerve. That means the oculomotor nerve, the facial nerve, or the glossopharyngeal nerve. And the cells they contain, they give rise to postganglionic nerve fibers. So these are distributed mainly through the branches of trigeminal nerve to the glands. They are the salivary glands, the glands of orbit, nose, pharynx, or the lacrimal gland. So talking about the otic ganglion is a parasympathetic ganglion which is small, oval in shape, and about the size of 2 to 3 mm, lying in the infratemporal fossa. Now it is located medial to the mandibular nerve trunk, just below the skull, lateral to the tensor palatii. So this is the tensor palatii muscle. This is the medial pterygoid muscle. The otic ganglion is a parasympathetic ganglion which is located, this is the trunk of mandibular nerve. It is located medial to the mandibular nerve trunk and lateral to the tensor palatii. It is adherent to the nerve of medial pterygoid muscle. The preganglionic parasympathetic fibers, they are originating in the glossopharyngeal nerve, that is the ninth cranial nerve. So otic ganglion lying in the infratemporal fossa, located medial to the trunk of mandibular nerve, just below the skull, and lateral to the tensor palatii muscle. So topographically it is related to the mandibular nerve, but functionally it is associated with the glossopharyngeal nerve. As we have seen and discussed this in the previous slide, the mandibular nerve trunk is in close proximity to the otic ganglion. So topographically means situation wise. otic ganglion situation wise is related to the mandibular nerve, but functionally it is carrying fibers from the glossopharyngeal nerve. So the otic ganglion situated in the infratemporal fossa just below the foramen ovale. Medially it is related to the tensor palatii muscle. Laterally is the trunk of mandibular nerve. So it is situated just below the foramen ovale, related medially to the tensor villi palatini. Laterally is the nerve trunk of the mandibular nerve. The medial pterygoid muscle lies in the anterior relation of the otic ganglion, and the middle meningeal artery lies behind the otic ganglion. This is the middle meningeal artery. The otic ganglion is carrying the parasympathetic or the motor root, sympathetic root, and the sensory root. If we discuss about the different route, talking about the parasympathetic or the motor route, this we have discussed in the lecture on the parotid gland as well. So the parasympathetic route is derived from the lesser petrosal nerve, which is a branch of ninth cranial nerve or the glossopharyngeal nerve. So the preganglionic fiber, they are arising from the inferior salivatory nucleus of the medulla, and they pass successively through the tympanic branch of the ninth nerve, tympanic plexus, and the lesser petrosal nerve, and they finally reach the otic ganglion and they relay there. Now the postganglionic fibers, the postganglionic secretomotor fibers, they reach the parotid gland via the auriculotemporal nerve. So this is the parasympathetic or the motor route of otic ganglion, where the nerve fibers arising from the ninth cranial nerve, they are synapsing and they are relaying in the otic ganglion. The postganglionic secretomotor fibers are carried by the auriculotemporal nerve, from which they supply the parotid gland. So if we talk about the parasympathetic route of the otic ganglion again, the preganglionic fibers, they are arising in the inferior salivatory nucleus of the medulla, passing through the glossopharyngeal nerve, the tympanic branch forming the tympanic plexus, the lesser petrosal nerve. Lesser petrosal nerve relays in the otic ganglion where they synapse, and the postganglionic fibers, they join the auriculotemporal nerve to convey the secretomotor fibers to the parotid gland. Now talking about the sympathetic route to the otic ganglion, it is derived from a nerve plexus around the middle meningeal artery, and it conveys the postganglionic fibers from the superior cervical ganglion of the sympathetic trunk. The fibers, they pass through the ganglion without relay and they join the auriculotemporal nerve, and thereby it provides vasomotor fibers for the blood vessels of the parotid gland, and the sensory supply is from the auriculotemporal nerve. Now branches arising from the otic ganglion, the motor branches are the nerve to medial pterygoid. The nerve to medial pterygoid, the fibers arising, they pass through the ganglion without relaying and they supply the medial pterygoid muscle along with the tensor villi palatini and the tensor tympani muscle. So the fibers, motor fibers which are arising from the nerve to medial pterygoid, they pass without relaying and they supply the tensor palatii as well as tensor tympani muscle. A twig connects the cauda tympani nerve to the otic ganglion, and also a twig from the ganglion, it joins nerve to the pterygoid canal. This forms an alternate pathway for the taste sensation from the anterior two-thirds of the tongue. So if we revise the different routes, the parasympathetic route for the otic ganglion, the inferior salivatory nucleus giving origin to the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers in the lower part of medulla. The fibers are carried through the glossopharyngeal nerve, its tympanic branch, tympanic plexus. The lesser petrosal nerve arising from it enters the aortic ganglion. It relays in the aortic ganglion. The postganglionic parasympathetic fibers pass through the auriculotemporal nerve and to supply the parotid gland. The sympathetic root is derived from the postganglionic sympathetic fibers from the superior cervical ganglia plexus around the middle meningeal artery, and it enters the aortic ganglion. They traverse the ganglion without relaying and they are vasomotor to the parotid gland. The sensory root is derived from the auriculotemporal nerve. With this, we come to an end of this lecture. We covered about the temporal fossa, the infratemporal fossa with the muscles of mastication. We also had a word about the mandibular nerve and the aortic ganglion. Thank you.